Hello, my name is Tony Kempson, and I am a computer technology instructor. Today, I'm going to be conducting a video on the basics of computers and the internet. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen so that you can see the PowerPoint that I'll be using today. So as we move forward, we're going to talk about our agenda, which is our learning objectives, basic computers, computer operating systems and software applications, storage, the internet security risks, preventing security attacks, and then we'll have a summary of what we went over today. So before we get started, I just want to say, please try not to be intimidated by computers. I know that they can be intimidating. I know that it can be stressful and frustrating when they don't do what you think they ought to do when you give them a command. But I want you to listen to what I'm going to tell you today. I'm going to break it down in layman's terms and in terms that are easy to understand. So let's get started. So, computer basics. First and foremost, it's going to benefit you to have an understanding of what the computer actually does. A computer is an electronic device operating under the control of instructions stored in its own memory. Now, we're going to talk about how those instructions are stored in its own memory. But first, take a look at the screen and you can see that these are some devices that you typically see when you talk about computers. This one at the top left is a desktop. What it is, it's a tower. This thing here is it's called a tower, and it houses all the electronics that run the computer. And you have a screen, a monitor, you have a keyboard, and you have a mouse. Now, this one just adjacent to it is called a all-in-one computer. So all the electronics and everything is all in there, in that screen and behind the panel is very thin. And typically, these are used with solid state electronics, and I'll explain that a little bit as we a little further along. And it too has a keyboard and a mouse. So you also see a laptop here. Then typically you guys are understand what laptops are. You probably are using one right now. I'm using one, and I'm using it with a couple of different screens. So the way that I use it is I have my laptop and I can have two screens. So actually have a total of three screens to be able to do the things that I need to do. Okay. Now to the right of that, you see a mobile phone, and above it, you see a tablet. Now you see this image in the middle. And now this is really going to give you some basic and a nice grounded background and foundation to build on this rest of this knowledge that we're going to be discussing today and that you're going to get. So what a computer does, all computers, they accept data. And that is what's called input. How do they accept data? By you. When you hit the keyboard, every stroke that you make on the keyboard, you're giving the computer data. Now, what happens is the hard drive and the different electronics inside the computer, they process that information or process that data, and then it produces information that you can use, which is called an output. Now, what type of outputs are there? We're going to go over that here in a little bit. But if you understand that, you already have the foundation of how computers work. So let's talk a little bit. Let's go a little bit further. Input devices. Now, those, just like I said, those are your keyboards, your mouse. If it's plural, mice, your microphone, USB drives. Those are those little thumb drives you input. Now, output devices are what the information you're going to get back. Monitors, printers, speakers. Those all give information out to you to be able to use. Now, there are more than that. There are more the devices that can be input and output devices, but these are just some to give the basic ones that you typically would use on a daily basis. And hopefully you'll understand now. You're starting to build that knowledge base of now I understand what a computer does. I get it. So let's go a little bit deeper. Okay, so you heard me mention a little bit about a hard drive. These are components within the computer. Now, it's a lot more components, but I'm just going to talk about a couple of the main pieces of computers. Now, the biggest thing a computer has, I shouldn't say the biggest because they're equally important. The hard drive or hard disk. And the difference between the different terminologies is that when you typically see this one here on the left, a hard drive, and this one right here, not that one, but the one on the left here, those hard drives are are typical hard drives that have moving parts in them. Okay, so anything that moves typically causes friction. So if there's causing friction, you got to have a way to cool it down. So you'll see or hear a fan. So listen to your computer right now. Do you hear a fan running? Is it back on the left side or maybe the right? If you hear it, that means that your computer has a hard drive that has moving parts, and that fan has to cool it off. Now, the newer technology, they use state equipment, and solid state is just that. There's a solid piece that doesn't move. It's all electronic. So therefore, there's no need to use any additional resources in the computer to cool it off. So you won't see a fan or hear a fan. Those very thin computers you see, those very thin ones, those use solid state components. Now there's more in there. There's a processor that processes the data that you give. There's a motherboard in there that there's a lot of things. Think of a computer like as a little city. So you have the electrical department, you got the fire department, you got the water, not necessarily fire, but you have all these different departments that help the city. Well, a computer is the same. A computer has, let's just say, the city government or the mayor. That probably would be the motherboard. Then you have a city commissioner or something, the processor who's going to make process all the things that go on in the city. Then you have a hard drive. They store all the stuff. That might be the dump. Excuse me, if you will. But they all do different things. So when you're looking at a operating system that have things like you said, like I said, the hard drive stores information and it gets instructions. Well, you give instructions, the processor processes and sends stuff out, and then the hard drive is what allows the software to run. Now, when we say software, we're talking about things like Microsoft Office, which we call the Microsoft Suite, the Microsoft Office, Microsoft Word, um, uh, Microsoft Excel, to do spreadsheets, all these different things. There's tons of software that run on the computer's hardware. The hardware is there. If the computer didn't have hardware, it would not be able to run that software. So that's one thing that's the connection between the hardware and the software that you need to know. That the software runs on the hardware, and then the processor makes all the decision. When that software comes in, it says, "Okay, I have this information. I'm gonna send it over there. I have this another piece of information. I'm gonna send it to the city council, whatever." So that's how that works. Now, if you see on the right hand of your screen, you'll see a looks like a Mac, which is a computer made by Apple, and it's a Mac, and that's an operating system that has its own set of its own platform. Windows is another operating system that it runs its own. So typically, there are two different platforms, Macs and Windows, Microsoft Windows. And within those, for mobile devices and tablets, you have Android. You probably have an Android phone right now. And iPhones. You have an iPhone or Android, but those all do the same thing. Now, those don't necessarily have hard drives, but they do have processors, right? And they do have other technology inside them that can store. Now, a lot of those have external chips that you have to put in, correct? So, and then other ones that they're built in. So they have storage just like a computer, but they have it on a smaller scale. So, and if we're going to be talking about storage, you need to understand what storage is and where storage is. So you can have storage that goes on compact discs. This is called an optical disc, but those store things, and you can actually have some discs that read that you can actually your software comes on them too, right? What is stored data? Well, you have thumb drives, okay, that can hold, tons of data or information. You also have the cloud. Now, don't be intimidated by the cloud. You hear the term cloud, and you might say, "Oh my goodness, what do they mean? I know nothing about the cloud." Well, you don't necessarily have to know anything about the cloud other than it is a storage out in the internet. It stores things out in the air. It doesn't store, I shouldn't say air, it doesn't store it on your local computer. It stores it on in the internet and things called servers, not necessarily servers, but there's cloud-based storage, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit when we talk about servers. But you can store all kinds of things, and there's much more storage on the cloud than there is on your computer. So don't be intimidated by hearing the cloud. It's nothing major. It's nothing bad. It's just a storage thing, a storage unit, if you will, out in the internet. So since I mentioned the internet, that's a great segue to talk about the internet. So the internet is a simply worldwide collection of computer networks that connects millions of businesses, government agencies, educational institutions, and individual personal computers. That computer you're using right now, it connects all of that. Now, how do we get that connection? Have a look over here on the left at a network. A network is basically a system of things that work together. Network. You have networks all over. You're familiar with networks. Well, let me show you how a typical network in your home will work. You will have a computer. Now they show this modem. This is called a modem. This is what's called an access point that allows you to access the internet. So modems nowadays are typically inside the towers or inside the computers, but the functionality is the same. So typically a modem or is wirely connected or wired to your computer. From there, your computer then can access the internet through some kind of cable in your home that goes to the internet. Now, just like you can do it there, you can also do it wirelessly. And and everybody's familiar with the term Wi Fi, but do you know what the term Wi Fi stands for? Wi Fi stands for wireless fidelity. And what that does, it's an access point. Now, it connects to your modem through a wire typically, and then what that wireless router it does is allows your tablet, your phone, and your laptop to connect to the internet through this access port. Because it's wireless, there's obviously no need for wires, and you can be in your bedroom, you can be in the basement, in the attic, wherever you are. So all of this one network that's in your home, now the internet, that's a small one over here, but here's a big one on the right-hand side of your screen. So you look at it, there's all these different networks, and some of them are connected to satellites. Absolutely, they are. So you have all these networks from businesses, from government agencies, your school, this school, any school, and your own individual computer are connected. So how do these things work? How is it that I can type something on my computer and then I get some information back? Well, that's called a server, right? A server is out there. Now these aren't in the cloud. They're out in different places, thousands and hundreds of thousands of them all over the place, and they handle a massive amount of traffic. So basically, when you put something in your computer and you want to find something, let's just say you want to find cars or find out about a car. Well, once you hit that enter key or click the submit button, all that information you just sent goes to this server. That server then goes out and looks and says, okay, I found this, I found this, I found this, and then it sends all that information back to your computer where you can view it on what's called a browser. A browser is a software that enables users with internet connections to access and view pages on a computer or mobile device. So that's how you're allowed to see all the things that when you type in. That's what it goes to, a server. And the servers are all over the world. They're all over the world. And you see those things through a browser. Now, along with all of that, the massive amount of information comes security risk. It's inevitable, right? So what do you do to protect yourself? You have things like viruses, malware, phishing, ransomware. Viruses can wreak havoc on your computer. Malware can destroy and actually lock some things up. Phishing is when people send out information to try to bait you into clicking on something so that they can start having a dialogue with you and then possibly send a virus to your computer. Ransomware. Ransomware goes and attacks your computer and it locks it. And then what they do, the whoever's in charge of the ransomware, they call and say, listen, if you want all your files, you need to pay me some money, and then that's how they get paid. And hackers, they can hack, and there's all types of worms and things. And look at these examples. Oh my goodness, her name is Sally over here on the left. Her name is Sally, and she's just so upset. Look at her, she's crying because she has all of these different security threats that's going on to her with her. And Bob, poor Bob over here, his viruses. He clicked on a link that he shouldn't have, and now he has to work all weekend, and he can't go home to his family because the company's gonna dock his pay, and he can't afford it. But Betty, look at Betty. She's all happy looking at her family. So she's about to take a trip out to Aspen, Colorado, where they're going to go skiing here in a little bit. So she's happy because she knows how to protect her computer through preventing attacks. She uses firewalls and different antivirus software. A firewall is a hardware and or software that protects a network's resources from intrusion. And look at how it works. It allows you to get stuff out to the internet, but it blocks any type of dangerous things from coming back in. And you can do that with antivirus software, keeping your programs up to date, and doing smart things like not using open Wi-Fi networks in coffee shops and airports and places like that. And you also don't use the same password for all your accounts. Download from credible websites and check social media security settings so that you're not putting your information out there, because that's how the bad guys get them. Okay. So let's do a really quick summary. We talked about the basis of computers, an electronic device and accepts inputs and outputs. We talked about internet servers and what their functions are. And we talked about how you can protect yourself from threats from the internet. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Let me turn off my screen. I hope you have enjoyed this video. And again, my name is Tony Kempson. I had a pleasure. Thank you, and have a wonderful rest of your day.